On September 11th, people from diverse faiths will gather for a Green Summit to explore spiritual practices, environmental justice and policy, and community healing. You can be a part of this important gathering too. To find out more, we welcome Elena Candler, Deputy Director of Faith in Place. We also welcome Pastor Scott Onhue, Policy Director for Faith in Place. Welcome to both of you. Tell us about the Green Summit. What might I expect if I attend?
The Green Team Summit is something Faith in Place has hosted each year for, I think this is our 7th or 8th year. And it was originally created because we have green teams, which are small groups at houses of worship that are working for environmental justice and climate solutions. And these green teams come together and we have workshops and networking opportunities. So that was the original vision. Then with COVID, it kind of morphed and changed. We have a virtual summit now, and this has expanded who comes to the summit. So we've had people from all over the world, as well as speakers from all over the world for the past 3 years. And the summit explores the intersection between faith and spirituality, justice, and environmentalism. And so there's 6 different sessions that look at that from different angles. This year, our keynote speaker is Dr. Katharine Hayhoe, who's a renowned climate scientist and expert communicator. She is both an evangelical Christian and a scientist, and has learned how to talk about climate change with many different audiences, and will be sharing a little bit about how we can do that as well. And then we'll have sessions on, so that keynote will be on Sunday the 11th, and then we'll have sessions on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, September 11th through the 14th. And the full agenda is available on greenteamsummit.org, but it should be a great time and an opportunity for people to meet other like-minded people from across the Midwest and the world.
Not everybody sees the association between faith and the environment, but for y'all, what does that intersection look like? What is that, or what does that relationship look like between faith and environmental care?
For communities that we work with, it's not just people that associate themselves with a particular religion, but a lot of people are connected through a spiritual practice or a sense of spirituality. So it's a broad range of faiths and people that are kind of motivated or connected to the world through their spiritual practice. And the common thread through all of these faiths and spirituality is this sense of interconnectedness with the world and with their communities, and a sense of care. So that can sound and look a little bit different depending on what religion or spiritual practice you follow. But the sense of care and interconnectedness is what really connects all of these different practices to care for the earth. And for us, that also means care for communities. We are a very justice-focused organization in the sense that environmentalism isn't something separated from our care for communities and our neighbors and the people around us. We're not just saving the earth as an external natural entity, but knowing that we are in relationship with one another in the earth. And so as we're advocating and finding solutions to our environmental crises, we are exploring how can we do this in a way that also deals with, systemic racism and the social crises that we face. And we advocate for solutions that really address all of these, because the crises are interconnected. So we believe the solutions are interconnected as well.
My work with Faith in Place started from a social justice lens. And as a person of faith, a pastor, one of the things I found out is that most of the major faiths all have a care of the earth component. We have been called to be stewards of the earth. And so with that responsibility, it was a natural connection to work with an organization like Faith in Place. And so I will attended 5 Green Team Summits after this one, on September the 11th. And throughout those 5 summits, I again learned a lot, but the great thing is that we see a great cross-section of faiths come in and see how they fit in to being great stewards of the earth.
So we recently just saw some pretty major legislation passed that directly impacts climate change. Pastor Anque, as the policy director at Faith in Place, I'm curious as to your reaction to that recent legislation.
Of course, I was super excited about the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA, as they say now, because again, we've been fighting for some monies to address what we know is real, which is climate change. And so with $369 billion going towards this effort of addressing climate change is important. It's a first step. Of course, there's so much more that can be done and should be done. But when we think about educating people again on electrification of vehicles, again, moving towards a clean energy source and having incentives for people to do that, encouraging less dependency on fossil fuels, this is the way to go. And so I like the incentive approach of the bill. And so when you think about you can get incentives for doing the right thing, that's absolutely important. So I applaud the Biden administration for moving forward with this, and I'm glad that the Senate was able to work out something, a package that will benefit all of America. And so we're super excited about this IRA, Inflation Reduction Act. Unfortunately,
there's still many Americans, including some people of faith, that deny climate change is real. This can sometimes be a hard conversation to have. I'm curious what y'all might recommend for, how to speak with folks that are struggling to kind of reconcile with climate change or really embrace it as something that is happening.
Yeah, that can definitely be challenging, especially if you care a lot about climate change and wanting to share that, but in a way that is, that unifies people rather than divides. I think if you're like interested in this topic, absolutely listen to Dr. Hayhoe. She's the expert in this. And I studied climate change communication. That's my background. And so I had been following Dr. Hayhoe's work for like a decade because she is really amazing at this particular topic. And so I think there's kind of 2 things that I consider. I'm from Tennessee, so I have I grew up in a very conservative area. Climate change was never talked about. And when I go back and explain what I do in the climate change realm, it can definitely bring up this very question, like, how do I talk about it in a way that communicates like the intention of what I do and isn't just, I'm not using words that I know will just incite people to feel reactive. And so there are people that are not going to care about climate change no matter what you say, but that's actually a really small percentage of the population. And the majority of Americans care about climate change and want action on climate change, but the story that they tell around it might sound a little bit different. So what I do and what I know some other experts in climate communication do is you find the common ground and you keep the stories personal. So if I'm talking about like, this is my job, this is what I do, that's hard to argue with because, I'm not like climate change is right and you need to, learn the science of it. It's like, well, what I'm doing right now is working on some policies that help address this issue, and you can find what you connect with the other person on. So and I shouldn't say lucky for us, but kind of the opposite of that. Climate change affects all parts of life, basically. It impacts health, it impacts the economy, it impacts food, impacts water, and everyone cares about one piece of that. Um, if you have children and are worried about their future, or worried about their air quality that they're breathing and developing asthma, or you're worried about the price of food going up, or even like global security, you're worried about like wars and refugees, all of these things are impacted by climate change. So I just find something that is common between, my work and then what is important to the person I'm speaking with. And I keep the story personal, like this is how this is impacting me or my family. And that's often a way to start the conversation without making it like a scientific argument about climate change or about, um, you know, the world heating at a certain, CO2 levels, et cetera, et cetera. Just keep it personal, keep it related to what's important to you, your story, and the person you're talking to.
And let me just add, I often point to events that are actually happening around the world. That's really important for people to see because that's reality. And so when we think about, fires in California or the West or flooding in the Midwest, we want to make sure that people understand the impact that this has on people's daily lives. And so even if they're not at that particular space, you can bring it home to them because in the city of Chicago, we could talk about asthma rates in communities of color. We can talk about the effects of what COVID had on impoverished communities and why and how you tie that to climate. And we can talk about diesel buses running through our community. And that's why we have breathing problems in Black and brown communities. We can, you can hit it home because people really need to see that climate change is not something fictional and that people just throw up in the air to have a conversation about. It's a daily reality that we're living. And so to combat climate change is actually to improve the lives of people. So I think Elena mentioned the intersectionality of climate and other issues of social justice and how important it is to tie those together. So if you don't put it in a silo, but you allow people to understand that this is affecting everyone from coast to coast and all around the world, I think people can eventually grab a hold of it. I do believe that the majority of people believe that something's going on and we need to address it.
Absolutely. So this last question is for both of you. What is your hope for the future of our planet?
My hope is that we live in a world where people can drink clean water, breathe clean air, feel safe in the environment that they live in, have a sense of community, understanding that what affects one affects all, and all of us are working together towards the change that we want to see.
Pastor Anque, I feel like if that world was here, I would be very happy. I'll just add to that one of my favorite quotes that like motivates how we do our work is by a Buddhist nun, Sister True Dedication, that says the way that we get into the crisis, we can't get out of the crisis the same way. And in the sense that like we have this opportunity to learn because of the situation we're in and be creative and come up with solutions together. So not only are we like advocating for a world that has clean air and clean water, but as we're doing that, we are changing the way that our society treats one another, treats the most vulnerable. So we're creating a world that is rooted in that sense of compassion for one another and for the environment. So it's a world where we have repaired what has been very broken for centuries. And yeah, so that would be my hope.
For those that are excited about Faith in Place and or the Green Summit, what is the best way for folks to get involved or to follow what y'all are up to?
Yeah, so if you want to attend the Green Team Summit, you can register. It's free at greenteamsummit.org. And there's also watch parties in various in-person locations. So if you want to join in-person watch party, the information for that is also on the summit. The whole summit is virtually accessible, so you can listen or watch from anywhere. And even if you can't attend the night of, go ahead and register, and then you'll have access to the recordings. So you'll be able to watch, especially related to what we're talking about today, Dr. Hayhoe's keynote. And then faithinplace.org is where you can learn about us as an organization. If you sign up for our newsletter, we send out each month, we have a regional newsletter where if you live in Illinois, Indiana, or Wisconsin, you'll be connected with very practical ways either to take action, get to know other people in your community, cool environmental events, resources, all of that. So that's an easy way to get to know us a little bit better.
Thank you so much to Elena and Scott for sharing more about the summit. I am Leah Smith for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.